Sorry, gotta adjust this thing. Okay. If anyone is here that was here yesterday for when I painted what's done so far of this, you'll notice that these areas here have sort of quieted down, I guess is the best way to put it. It's probably not the best way to put it, but they've settled down, they've melded into each other a little bit more. Same over here. And I might add some more. I might darken up some of these blue areas later on. But right now, this blue stuff that you see, I might have mentioned, or you might have been here when I mentioned that they are frisket, which is stuff that you lay down so when you paint over it, it doesn't go onto your actual painting surface, protects it. And I use these Molotow pens, these masking fluid pens, that work pretty good, not perfect, but pretty good. So now I have this, what's called a rubber cement pickup, and you can just rub it and take off the frisket. It just basically picks it up, it sticks to this rectangle. So you see, you might not be able to see that there's a little bit left, or it got through it to some degree because I think this pen is sort of running out. So it appears when I put it down on the paper that it's covered it up perfectly, but I think the paint still gets through to some degree, but it's enough. And this, even also one thing to consider when you do this process, if you have some pencil drawing underneath where you're going to put the frisket that you don't want to lose, then you need to draw a little bit more firmly and darker than you might normally, because the rubber cement pickup acts a little bit like an eraser to some degree. So if I had some drawing that I really didn't want to have to do over again, that I really needed, I might need to draw it a little bit more firmly. These rougher lines, rougher outlines that are left behind for these bowling balls really won't be too evident once I'm all done with everything. And you can see right here I actually went over the boundary where the misket ended and the paper began, so I ended up painting a little on the ball, and there's a little roughness here, but I should be able to fix all that when I paint it. Looks like a little bit got into the shirt, but again, I can fix that. I can tighten up some of the edges, stuff like this. So you can see it's sort of sticking to the edge. You can get rid of that if you want to, throw it away. But it gives you, for the most part, protects those areas you don't want the paint to get on when you're doing a big area like this that I did, and I wanted to be free with the direction of the paint and not have to paint around these areas, because then it ends up looking kind of artificial, the color back here, I mean, because you're painting around areas and those strokes can show up and just not look good. But I should have all this stuff off in a minute or two, and then be able to start painting, and I should be able to finish it up. Because all that needs to be done right now is painting the bowling balls, maybe adding that glow behind that I might add on them. And then just fixing up various areas that the Mist Kit missed or that I screwed up. Okay, looks like that's about all I'm going to get off of that. And I'll look over my computer every once in a while to see who's here, so hello to those guys that have shown up so far. Nathan and a couple other people. Alright, so what do I want to do first? I think first I will get a drink. And let's see, I guess I'll just start on the top bowling ball. Maybe I'll get some of these finger holes drawn again that got erased. And then, well, there's another thing that I need to fix again. Reapply the outlines to this bowling ball. It's lost its outline. So as I said yesterday too, I can't see the screen of my phone to see if comments come up, so sometimes I might not reply right away to some of you, but I check the computer every once in a while to see who's here and if there's a question, and if I miss your question, you know, I'll get to it in text once I look at the actual finished video and all the comments that are there. So basically I have these 5 are the main bowling balls with the main magic colors, black, white, red, blue, green. And then these, I haven't decided exactly what I'm going to do color-wise. I might have them be just various colors, actual different kind of colors on bowling balls. I might have them sort of fade into him to some degree, so they're almost like transparent. I haven't really decided. I will when I get a little closer to that. But I want to decide which colors I want where. I think for the red to stand out enough, probably needs to be this one, because these areas are a little bit more red and it would not separate from the background enough. So I guess I will start with that one. I'm going to have to go to the art supply store and get some more ink, some of these colors, because I used up so much on the background. So I think what I'm going to do is I am going to put some water on the surface where the ball is, and I got to tilt it a little bit sometimes to see where the water is, so I can see the shine of the water on the board. See if I missed anything. I can tell right away that I don't like this red. But more than likely, what I will end up doing is darkening up some shadow areas. The reason I laid down water first here is so I can hopefully pull out a little light spot here, a couple lighter areas in the ball, and I might end up probably going in and putting in a tiny bit of white and fading that outward, because this ink soaks into the surface pretty quickly, stains the surface pretty quickly. Some colors more than others, I think, but in general it stains it pretty quick. And then while that's wet, I'm going to add a little violet to this red. To darken up a little bit of an area here, leaving a little of the red below it as a like reflective highlight. Ends up looking like a smiley face here right now. if I do decide on a glow around these balls, that will also sort of be a cheat of sorts to diminish the roughness of maybe the edges around this ball due to the frisket and just the way that the paint is stained area here. And once I get the finger holes in, then it'll also take the eye away from some of that roughness, I'm hoping. I think the reason why it is showing a little bit more texture than I would like is because of all the rubbing of the pickup. Might have roughened the paper to some degree. So we'll see if it does it on all the other ones. All right, I think I'm going to do the green one next. I actually have some green ink that I think I'll use and maybe add a little bit of blue to it. So actually, I think I might add a tiny bit of yellow to it to change the tint a little bit. So it's a little bit more of a lime green and might stand out on the background a little bit more. So I'll go ahead and do the same thing, and we'll see if that texture shows up on this ball. Doing the same thing that I didn't particularly like. The one thing is with this ink, though, I can also go over it again and again and again to see if I can get that smooth gradation. Yep, doing the same thing. So getting these to look like the really smooth surface that these bowling balls are might take a little work. More work probably than people want to sit around and watch for, but we'll see. So I've added some Prussian blue to this green to get this dark area. Clean the brush a little bit so I can try and soften the edges. And then clean the brush a little bit to pull out a light area down the bottom where it's reflecting light from somewhere else. And right now on my headphones is Prefab Sprout. Hey Patricia, I wonder if you're still here. I might have missed you saying hello. If anyone's curious, wants to see some really cool artwork, go check out Patricia's page. She does these really amazing combinations of black and white realistically rendered faces and figures and stuff, and then adds a lot of abstract paint drips and strokes and stuff, and always looks really cool. I want these reflections to be a little bit irregular and not look all the same, or all these light areas. All right, so the next one will be blue. And now the hit parade's playing Talk Talk. Have to be careful in this case not to go over into the red area too much, because it'll create a little bit darker area than it should be. Although if I decide to add a glow around some of these balls, I'll be able to cover that up, pretend like it never happened. So I tend to, if I want to get a clean brush, dip it in the water, clean it out, and just squeeze it between my fingers a little bit. Some people might use a paper towel, but I like to be able to feel it, I guess, so that I can tell how wet the brush is, how dry I want it to be. Yeah, I think the paper, because of the rubbing and maybe all the water and paint, is becoming a little distressed and not giving me the smooth area that I want. So I think a lot of these highlights I'm going to end up putting some white down and softening those areas to get the smoothness that I want. And one thing you should never do, which I just did really, is go over an area when it's in the middle of drying. Because you can get some splotchy areas that you don't want. So I'll have to fix that later on. No problem, Patricia. I got lots of love for everybody. I like to point out other people's stuff whenever I can. Now these two, the other two colors are black and white, which is kind of tricky because basically they're just a darker version of the other or a lighter version of the other. Essentially a gray. So I'm going to have to mix some white, and I think in this case I might actually use a tiny bit of actual black. And then maybe a tiny bit of indigo, which is a dark grayish blue. Mix them together. See how it looks here in the palette. Right now it's this here, which is a little too gray, so I'm going to actually add just a drop of Prussian blue. And I just test it on the test paper beside to see what it's like. It's got a little bit of color to it. So that's going to be the color, if you will, of the white one. And I can see there's already some paper, yeah, this distress where the frisket was. And this will make me think twice, I think, about using this frisket again when I want to do something that's really smooth, like these bowling balls. And this one will end up looking white compared to the black one and all the balls around it. And I'll add some more white highlights to that one too. The black one, I'm going to mix another well with some black and Prussian blue, so it's got some color to it, but this is going to be pretty dark. And I won't be able to probably see, I might be able to see the thumb hole drawings on this once I get the color down, but if not, it's not that big of a deal. It's obviously the kind of thing you can wing later on. Sometimes, I mean, in the case of these bowling balls, sometimes the distressed quality of the paper can maybe work to your advantage to some degree, because it gives it some interesting textures. Alright, so that's the basic colors for those bowling balls. Probably add a little bit more shadow to this one once it's dry. The red one's dry enough that I can maybe deepen that shadow. And you could always treat this bowling ball as one of those that has various little veins of color and stuff. So it's not just one shade only. Oops. And you can usually tell if an area is dry. If the paper's still fairly cool, obviously if it's wet and it gets on your fingers, it's not dry. But if the paper is a little cool, then that means that it's not quite dry enough. But it's getting there. And in fact, you can turn your volume down for a second because I'm going to use a blow dryer to dry these a little bit. The blue created some interesting little shapes along the bottom here. Now I've got to decide what I want to do with these other ones. Wait a minute, is there a yellow? No, I don't think there is a yellow. when I did this painting the first time, I actually did regular bowling balls with various patterns and stuff in them. And then someone pointed out, hey, you should make those the magic colors. You know, dummy. I should have thought of that. So then I just basically put a glaze of each color on top and adjusted it. So that would be the case. Alright, I guess I'll just do these balls different colors. I don't know, it's sort of waffling between, because these should be the focus, but it's basically a parody of two of the Brainstorm cards, one by Christopher Rush and one by Therese Nielsen, who has these glowing glyphs in this shape. So it's supposed to sort of allude to both of those. I mean, the Chris Rush doesn't have anything like this. That's where the Big Lebowski thing comes in. This one's going to have to really be cleaned up. Very rough edges in this one. In this case, what I'll probably do is get a shade of, or mix a little bit of white with green and go around the perimeter of this one to clean up these edges over here. They're messed up. That ball is going to have some interesting textures going on that I can play with later. Thanks, Ken. Thanks for coming by. I appreciate anyone that comes by and watches at all, because I even go by friends' live feeds, painters that I just really, really admire, and I feel like I can only watch for a little while, unless it's just incredibly interesting for some reason. Because these things take time, and I don't expect people to stick around for the whole thing. I mean, especially because you can always go watch it later, since it'll be recorded. Well, maybe I'll do a gold ball and a copper one. I think I need another palette, though. Running out of palette holes. I probably should have done this gold ball up here, though, because I'm wondering if it's going to meld too much visually into the sweater. thing about this, I was worried when I was doing that last painting about this gold not being able to photograph correctly, because a lot of times when you use metallic paints, it looks great in the original, which for some people is all they need, but then it doesn't photograph the same. It ends up looking at maybe just a gray version of whatever color that is. But it seemed to soak into the background and create interesting textures of its own, so it worked out all right. And now I'm going to add a little bit of sepia to this to get a darker shade here. Okay, the next one I think is, I'm going to make this one more of a multicolored one. So I'm going to put this blue around the red to some degree first, and then I will meld them together a little bit around the edges so that the red doesn't get totally compromised and change to just some muddy color. And then I got to add a little water around the edge so that it is not just white. And you got to be careful where your brush stops sometimes, because that's where it might deposit a little bit more ink or water than you want. So sometimes you have to move your brush in the direction where you maybe say want a little bit darker or a little bit more water deposit, and end there, or you have to clean it up. Okay, I'm going to do a little symmetry here and make this a red ball like the one on top. And again, I don't know for sure if I'm going to somewhat liberate these balls on the bottom so that they are sort of melding into Lebowski here, or if they're going to have a glow around them, haven't decided. Alright, one last ball to get the basics down on. Oh, what color should it be? I don't have a violet ball yet. Maybe I'll throw that one in. Right next to the violet of his shirt. Not the smartest decision, but most of it's at the other side of the violet, so that should be okay. While I'm waiting for all those to dry, I think I'm going to add a few little highlights that I see that I want in the old beardo. Still have to add the lightning bolts too. Okay, now I think I can add the finger holes to some of these, all of these balls. Sorry, my head might get in the way. Maybe I can move this a little bit this way. Probably gonna have to fix this because there's so much ink in that little area. It's gonna be hard to get a little bit of highlight or light showing into the hole, although it may be working. And I'm just going to have to more or less decide or guess where the other ones were because they've pretty much been obliterated by the color. In fact, I thought that might have been, yeah, actually I think there were two up here. Some of these holes you wouldn't even be able to see, but once I have them established, I can add a little tiny highlight. It'll show the rim of the hole if it's in darkness. subtle change there. Oh, gotta be careful. I'm putting my hand on the white that I just laid down there. In a little while. And some of these lighter colored balls, the holes to some degree are just darker versions of the color, not necessarily black. He's gonna mess me up. So anyone that's just come in and wondered what's going on here, this is a commission for someone that wanted an original of this piece that I'd already done, which is a play off of a couple Magic the Gathering cards and of course the Big Lebowski. It is ink on illustration board, about 24 by 15, something like that. I'm going to get a little fresh water because I need to try and add the white highlights to these balls. And I know it sounds like a broken record, but I always appreciate people sharing these things so that other people can see it that wouldn't normally see it. Okay. Just okay. What will I do? It's cool. It's cruel. It's cruel and cruel. Cruel is the gospel. It sets us so free. Like that hurts. Purple plums. Okay, what will I do? Yes, I know I'm singing lousy, so what? It's cruel. It's cruel. It's cruel and cruel. Cruel is the gospel. It sets us so free. Away from me. As you can see, there are a lot of little steps to go through to get these things where you want them. Good thing about these inks, one of the good things about these inks is I can go on top of some of this stuff. If it's dry, it doesn't affect it at all. This particular ball, this rough edge on this side, I'm just going to have to extend the red into it so I get a little bit more defined line there. Okay, I think what I'm going to do next is tackle the lightning bolts that are emanating from his super brain. What I think I'm going to do is do the basic lightning bolt, maybe soften the edges a tiny bit, and when that's dry, go over it with a wider, more water than paint version so that you get a soft edge. Of course, right after I said it, I break what I said, and now I'm softening the edges while it's still wet. Because I am Mr. Indecision. Now I'm listening to the lazy, sexy voice of Hope Sandoval. From Mazzy Star, although this is her sort of solo thing. And I am trying to sort of simulate the same general direction of the bolts from the first Brainstorm card to some degree anyway. think I'm going to do a little cleanup around the edges of some of this stuff. Just meld it into the background. Blend it, better term. Right now it's pretty much going through and fine-tuning stuff that I see I want to fix. One thing that I'm doing differently from the last one is actually having this energy bolts affect a few of these bowling balls. Cool. Tears. Start, skip the beat. Right up. Turn back the clock. No, you won't. No. It's getting close to being done. This is the stage where sometimes I need to tell myself, stop, it's done. I always seem to find something else that I feel needs to be made better. Okay, I think I should leave this alone. Maybe I'll come back a little later and see something else I forgot. But I think for now, another piece is finished. Yeehaw! Thanks for watching. Thanks for commenting. Thanks for sharing. Keep doing it. I appreciate it. See you, everybody. Sorry for this dismay.